Do we want to live in a Meritopia, or do we want to live in America?
We know the Democrat playbook by now. It is the politics of greed and envy. It's been going on with them clearly for the last 40 years. Do Republicans have a sound response back?
Well, you know, where I see all the politics and greed and envy is on the left. The government's never big enough. It never gets enough money. It never spends enough. It builds all these monuments to itself. And then it complains it doesn't have enough money while it's destroying our financial system and draining the wealth from the private sector. What the utopians that push this massive statism do is they try and destroy the individual. So what you and I consider individual self-interest, what's in the best interest of the individual productivity, individual success, they have to, create devil terms for it. Oh, you're a selfish profiteer. Or look how he's stealing money from the other guy. So this is why I wrote this book. I just felt we got to get past the superficial. We got to get into the substantive. We got to understand where our ideas come from, and then we'll be much better able to combat what's going on today.
What would be the most practical way that readers can glean from the book on how to help restore our republic?
Well, I think the question is whether we can restore a republic. I sure as hell hope we can, but it's getting close to the point where I wonder. And the question is, before I answer that, and I ask this in the book, the question is, do we want to live in a Meritopia, or do we want to live in America? Now, if we want to live in America, we have to reestablish our constitutional system. And we've got decades of hard work to do to unravel what's going on, because so many decisions made about our lives now aren't out of our control. They're made by bureaucrats and judges and temporary politicians who try to make permanent changes to our society. So first of all, we have to understand this and comprehend it. The question is whether there's enough of us left in this country, enough citizens who want to be independent, whether there's enough citizens who want to have a constitutional republic. And the utopians have done an enormously effective job through the welfare state and entitlements and propaganda of attempting to change the American psychology, what it means to be an American, the American mindset. Obama is doing it every day now, talking about, well, we're not this, we're this. In other words, he's attacking who we used to be and saying who we need to be. And the question, I say, is whether there are more of us who reject that or more of us who accept it. Now, those of us who reject it and believe in individual sovereignty, and the things talked about by John Locke and later Montesquieu and the founders and Alexis de Tocqueville, our job is to convince as many people in our circle of family and friends and coworkers and neighbors as we possibly can to our point of view. There are tens of millions of us who love this society. There are tens of millions of us who reject this fundamental transformation. There are tens of millions of us who can be educators. We don't need the government to do this. We don't need the media to do this. If all of us do it, we can accomplish something. I talk about this on the air. We are the Paul and Paulette Reveres of our time. And we can do this without any threat of personal injury. We don't have to go to war. We just have to do it, and we need to mean it. Start with your children and your grandchildren. Start with your family members. But my hope here is that by comprehending, embracing, understanding where all these principles come from, not just spouting them, but understanding them, we will be extremely effective Paul and Paulette Reveres down the road anyway.
The person who is beholden to our entitlement system, how do we convince them that they should be voting conservative principles and convince them they should come on to our side? But they are entrenched currently in the entitlement, the utopian mindset.
Well, I wish I had an answer to that. This is a complicated issue, and it's complicated because different people in different walks of life are attracted to this utopian argument. You can have billionaires who've been very successful through the capitalist system, who aren't even crony capitalists, who are pushing for this utopianism. But you also have these malcontents, who Eric Hoffer talked about, who are unsuccessful, who don't believe they'll ever be successful, and they need someone to blame. So they blame the successful, or they blame the system, And that's easy pickings for Obama and people like that, the utopians who push this state of society, because they're offering them false hopes and false opportunities. There are people who've been bought off through entitlements. But there are also people who've not heard our case. When you listen today to the Republicans fighting each other over capitalism, they're not making the case for free markets, right? It's become a personal fight, a superficial fight for the most part, not all of them, but too many of them. Again, we have to make the case, we as citizens, because the bottom line is this, and Benjamin Franklin alluded to this at the Constitutional Convention. If the people in this country want despotism, they're going to get despotism. If the people in this country want liberty, then they're going to get liberty. It's up to us. It's not up to the politicians or anybody else, which goes back to your point. Inform ourselves, really comprehend what's going on, and make our case, tens of millions of us to tens of millions of other people. I think that's our only chance.